Peace, everybody. It's the Hood Mystic representing www.hoodmystic.com. I am the Hood Mystic. Today we're talking about the lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is in Aquarius. It happens July 27th, 2018. And the title of this video is the Cicada Song. So if you want to figure out why I call this video the Cicada Song or what this energy is about, please pay attention all the way through. Ride with me on this one. This is a new journey for me. I'm about to do something completely different as far as my presentation. So I just appreciate all the donations and all the support. So if it moves you to support this channel, all the links will be at the bottom of this video: Patreon, PayPal, Cash App, all of that. So continue support. We really thank you here at hoodmystic.com. But this is for the people. This is really going to help you understand this energy. So I really want to just walk you through and just show you some different things and kind of cut back and do some video, just do some different things, make this thing interesting, because astrology is interesting and it's my responsibility to try to show people what it's about. So let's just talk about this thing real quick. July 27th, 2018, we'll be experiencing a lunar eclipse, which a lunar eclipse is really a full moon. And when it's a lunar eclipse, the earth is between the sun and the moon, and usually it casts a shadow upon the moon. And that's because the sun is not shining directly on the moon. It's kind of shining through the earth to the moon. So there's some interesting things that's going to happen. In this video, we'll just discuss all of the astrological aspects surrounding the lunar eclipse and what they could mean. This lunar eclipse will be a heavy hitter, and it's personal. The last full moon I talked about was more of a universal, more of a global full moon. I was conjunct the fixed star of Fasces. And so if you've been paying attention to the news, I know like a lot of astrology people kind of avoid the news, but I kind of pay attention to everything, especially like Vice News. And if you look at the last episode of Vice Weekly, which aired July 13th, they really show how fascism is really taking over in little pockets all over the world. So get in tune to what's happening in the world. And they also touched on the opioid epidemic and things of that nature. So it's a lot of different things that's happening in the world that we can begin to awaken ourselves to, as opposed to living in our little box and things of that nature. Like, it's a lot of stuff going on. And so what we have here is, let's look at this chart real quick. So what we have here is the sun in Leo conjunct the node, the north node. And we also have the moon conjunct Mars, which is conjunct the south node, because the south node and the north node are always opposing one another. So it's important for us to understand that a full moon conjunct the nodes has a spiritual overtone and undertone. And if we are looking at this thing correctly, then we can understand what's really happening. A lot of times people look at full moons as positive and really aesthetic. They want to, like, it's a blood moon, it's a lunar eclipse, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. But generally what you're dealing with the lunar eclipse is a reaping or a culmination of things, a boiling point. There is things that we've done during the solar eclipse as far as planting seeds and things of that nature, that the lunar eclipse will begin to bring forth bounty. But this lunar eclipse is tied to the solar eclipse that happened August 21st, 2017. So the intention set in that solar eclipse, we will begin to receive the rewards. So if you are mindful around that time, those things that you set in motion, those things will now become fully evident. And if you are sowing stress around that time, that will be evident too. We have to be mindful about the seeds that we sow and the various energy frequencies that we take into consideration, because the reality is that our sadness, our pain, and our anger is not for us. It's for other entities outside of us that feed off that anger, that feed off that pain. So when there are things that are happening in the world that are triggering pain, and you're not thinking of ways to combat that, thinking of ways to fight back, then that will show up very strong during this full moon. Because we have the moon in Leo, which is a more of a aggressive, more of a action point that we have to kind of understand. We can't simply build up energy. We simply can't like say what we want. We have to actually do it. Leo is representative of a lion. So imagine a lion just talking a whole bunch of shit. Like it don't matter. Like it is not intimidating. But when a lion comes and bites off a whole chunk of your leg, then it really matters, because you're actually doing something that shows your fierceness. You're actually doing something that shows your energy. And so let's just talk about this thing, man. So we have Moon conjunct Mars in the south node of Aries. And so, I'm sorry, south node of Aquarius. So if you have a full moon conjunct the south node with Mars in Aquarius, then that Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and this signals major changes. So I have this picture of Pierce Brosnan, whether he is in Volcano or Dante's Peak. If you understand his character, he senses something bad is about to happen. Let me prepare for it, as opposed to the people who are simply living a life, living mindlessly in a reality that is falling. But you know, this glamour or this aesthetic that we're trying to get to, so people can be like, oh, you look good, you're awesome. That's not really applicable right now. This is really a call to the Pierce Brosnans of the world, the people who sense a problem and are willing to do something about it. It's not very wise to think that your skeletons won't come out of the closet during this time. It's not really wise to think that your same emotional patterns will get you through. Why is that? Because Mars is conjunct the south node. The south node represents habitual patterns, not from this lifetime, but from lifetimes. And so when Mars is conjunct the south node, generally, if those patterns are good or bad, Mars is going to act upon them, whether or not we're mindful of the things we actually want to do spiritually. Now, if Mars is conjunct the south node and you're not aware of your spiritual legacy or your spiritual lineage, and you're just doing things and you think that you are this person, then you'll be just continuously living up to this ideal that truly doesn't exist. So the moon is going to be there. So your emotional frequency should be that of I'm spiritual as opposed to I'm a human, because this idea is really flawed and limited, the human idea. So the overall feeling is, since the sun is conjunct the north node, so say for instance we have a spiritual lineage, or we have a greater path, or we have greater things for us, then what must we do to get to that point? We must cut the grass so the snakes will show, so we can get rid of those people, those situations, those relationships that don't serve us. And we have to be strong about this. And then we have to not expect things from people who are not lined up with our spiritual lineage. And it's not a point of being mad. It's not a point of being angry. This is a time of great empowerment. This is a time of action. This is not a time of emotions, because the sun is not in Cancer any longer. The sun is in Leo. So this is an active, preventive, protective, and planning energy. Another word for this is foresight or foreknowledge. Google it. Look up the definition and apply it to your life. See problems before they happen. If you get intuitions, if you feel like this is not right, then do something about it. The sun is in Leo. The moon is going to be in Aquarius. So change is going to happen. You have to be Simba or Mufasa at this point. And so generally what is happening overall, the big picture of this thing is that spirit is trying to free you from your bondage, but you may be attached to your bondage. You may love your bondage, but hate healing, or don't understand healing, or don't understand freedom. So the moon in Aquarius is ultimately freedom, but generally we don't really want that. So this is something to be mindful of. The full moon, let's look at this chart real quick. The full moon, so if the full moon is opposed one another, so the moon is opposed to sun, and then dead center of this opposition is Uranus in Taurus, creating a T-square. What is a T-square? A T-square is a set of problems, a set of multiple things that one has to overcome and obstacles for a purpose. Generally, when we are, sorry, I got distracted. When we are dealing with things, when we are facing challenges, when we have problems in our life, if those problems become bigger than our goals, then well, you have a right to be depressed, you have a right to be sad. But if your goals, if your ideologies, if the things that you want to accomplish in life are larger than your challenges or obstacles, then it just is what it is. Just like Will Smith and Jada Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness. Of course he was going through a lot of things. Of course things were hard. Of course things were bad. But ultimately, the thing that pulled them through was facing the things that were in front of him and not saying, well, this situation is bad and I'm just going to roll up in a ball because there's nothing that I can do about it. Your eagerness to attack these problems, your willingness to fight back is really going to propel you to where you need to be, as opposed to feeling your emotions and acting upon those emotions and involving yourself into even more isolations. And so back to our ideals, back to our ideologies, those things will be severely challenged because the actual reality might not be in line with what we want. So if what we want is not matching the reality, then what are we going to do about it? This is not doom and gloom, because if you've been paying attention to my channel, we've been doing the daily energy readings. We've been really paying attention to the solar eclipse. We've been really mindful about sowing seeds. So ultimately, when we have a T-square and we're doing what we're supposed to do, then great things are happening. It's an old-timey saying, but I think it rings true. God doesn't put nothing on you more than you can bear. So if you're faced with something, it's important to deal with it. People will see you. So say, for instance, you've been sowing positive seeds and doing the things you've been doing, clearing and understanding who you are spiritually. And then the good fortune starts to come in. Everybody's going to be wondering, well, where did all this come from? Well, since this is not, a popping channel and all like that, this can be just our little secret. How about that? Okay. And so we are trying to create a vibration of universal love and selflessness and things of that nature. And so since everybody is not dealing with this energy, they are going to feel it. And so what is your responsibility to dealing with your fellow man? This would be something to be mindful of, because people are going to be coming and asking you for help and things of that nature. And so you may be called to action to really be the beacon or represent what this spirituality is about. So interesting stuff, interesting time that we're living in. I just want people to be prepared and understand that, the differences of energy is really important. So we're going to really deal with everything one by one, as opposed to simply just, talking a whole bunch of random keywords. And so this article, this video was a lot of intuitive work, a lot of esoteric work. I put a lot of work into this for the benefit that maybe it can help people. So I really want you to pay attention. If this thing resonates and registers, it's important that you take notes and take efforts on the things that I'm talking about and how it applies to you and how you can begin to implement it. So the sun is, like I said, is conjunct the North Node, but there's some aspects to the sun that I really want to talk about. The sun trine Chiron in Aries. Chiron is in Aries and the sun is trining it. Okay, and so the sun in Leo is all about energy and putting forth that effort. And so what is happening when we put forth that effort? Since it is a trine to Chiron, then that means there is a natural relation to our healing when we act upon our spiritual reality. I hope you follow me. And so there is an abundance of energy that is on the planet, but the problem is there is no proper modality to release it. Generally, when you have this energy, you're like, well, shit, I gotta make some money, or I gotta make some love, or I gotta fill all these voids that I have. Generally, that's the wrong way to use this energy. We have to begin to move forward from a new place, a place of understanding, a place of foresight, a place of foreknowledge. We are spiritual, so what does that spirituality look like? Generally, we have to separate ourselves from our human understanding. And let me just take a break real quick to get this point out because it's been on my heart. So when we talk about science and understanding of, intelligence and I'm a smart guy and things of that nature, a lot of people take that from science. But what I'm talking about is consciousness. And so if you have a brain, you will understand like consciousness does exist. My consciousness is something that does exist. So when we speak about modern science, they don't touch on this concept. They tell you everything else, but they don't tell you anything about being conscious and how to develop it. So generally, separate me from that. And understand this is different from modern education and formal teaching and things of that nature. We're discussing consciousness. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So we got Batman. If you ever seen The Dark Knight, Batman is climbing out of the dark night of the soul, and he's down there and he's trying to climb up, and every time he climbs up with the rope. And he keeps falling because he got that backup. The time that he gets out of that hole is when he climbs up without a rope. Because he's like, whatever, he goes for broke. If I don't climb out this time, then F it. And so what that represents is this sun square to Jupiter, saying in order for this healing to really take place, you have to align your Jupiter energy. And since Jupiter is in Scorpio, it's important that you clear so you can rise to as high as you want to rise to without the fear of falling. Generally, you have that fear of falling because the trauma is still there. I hope you're following me. And so Sun in conjunct Saturn, this is an ultimate test in perception. What do you perceive? How do you perceive yourself? How do you perceive your reality? How do you perceive your life? How do you perceive your relationships? And so we're dealing with a full moon, which is a culmination of emotional frequencies that we have sold throughout time. And now your perception is coming in your face. And so you might want to go to people and so they'll feel sorry for you, but ultimately this is what's happening. And so we have to realize our individual purpose and our individual plan and do our individual work. It's important to write down in your notes what steps, what realizations, what things are you going to do to realize your truth. So, interesting time that we're living in and things that are going on, and how are we going to fight against this energy that is not in the world but within ourselves. Our biggest enemy is our past, and how to really move past it or even understand it and really clear that trauma. Because even if we intellectually get past the psychological point of trauma, then there has to be an action to clear it, because generally I can say that I'm healed, but when some shit happened, that realization that I'm not healed is what's going to actually take place. So this is a reality check. I'm going all over the place, ain't I? So we're going to talk about Jupiter and Scorpio, Neptune and Pisces. Jupiter and Scorpio is trine Neptune and Pisces, and we've been talking about this for a while, and we're going to talk about it for a while because it's a long-standing and powerful transit. And this is all about spirituality and how it's showing up in your life and how you can deal with it, how you can be able to function with it and begin to incorporate it into your waking life. How do you do that? You do it by journaling, dream journaling, keeping track of your visions and intuition, making sure that your coincidence is in check, you know, and you have to also realize, so the Neptune and Pisces is all about perception. The things that are happening in your life are trying to tell a deeper story, but your personal life is trying to tell a random, you know, made up story. And so the random made up story is the story that people care most about. But the deeper story is something personal to you that if you're, like I said, journaling, keeping track of stuff, and, you know, I had this synchronicity keeps happening and things of that nature. So these are things that are trying to alert you to who you are. But you have to be able to listen to the messages and incorporate them. And you can't be thinking that, you know, some famous spiritual person has the answers for you. You ultimately have to figure this out for yourself with a lot of effort and a lot of, you know, foresight and foreknowledge. And a lot of you already know, but it's more or less the belief, the belief of it. Because I see a lot of Oyas and Shangos and things of that nature on Facebook, but then when it comes to the action, it's like, you know, it's like a person who has a Oya avatar, things of that nature, but she doesn't even like men. It's kind of, it's interesting, but we'll talk about that later. So ultimately, Neptune is going to be squaring Venus and Virgo. So there's a real understanding of love and what true love is. What is love? Love, is it existential? Is it personal? Or is it universal? Is love passive? Are you waiting to be loved? Or are you actively giving love? Neptune and Venus is going to be all up in your fields, and it's going to be testing you and trying to see what your love is about. Ultimately, love is to be given. So generally, we have to really figure out this love that we have in ourselves. We have different vibrations of love and energy and things of that nature, but, you know, who's really giving love now? Who's really showing love? Who's really about that love? And it could be you. It's mainly up to you and how you develop your spiritual thing. And then when you feel things, or you deeply spiritually moved to people, and then how you act upon it, because like I said, the sun is in Leo, so you could be feeling so passionate and so loving towards a person, but you don't say nothing to them. Whose bad is that? Whose fault is that? That's ultimately your fault. So it's important that you begin to speak your truth, understand that you can speak your truth because you've done a lot of clearing work. You've ultimately understood all of the steps that it take to get to love, or ultimately understood all the steps that it take to get to that dream job. You know, this is the time of the twin flame. We've all been in contacts with our twin flames throughout the world, like during the past couple months, but a lot of times we don't have the energy or the confidence to say, I love you, I don't want to live without you. Whose bad is that? Whose fault is that? Maybe you are in a relationship with a person who is not your twin flame, but you see your twin flame every day and you're dealing with that. Okay? It's Neptune and Pisces square Venus and Virgo. It's going to show up, and it's also Neptune and Pisces trine Jupiter and Scorpio. Whose fault is it that you're not getting the love that you need? Is it the person that you love, or is it your fault for not saying the things that you need to say or conveying the message that you need to say? Taking that risk, stepping out there. And so, the tarot of the week, we have a double doozy since the sun is in Leo and the moon is in Aquarius. Those cards are the 5 of Wands and the 5 of Swords. And so we have passion and we have thoughts. Okay. Just going to run down the meanings of these cards and what it ultimately connects to the energy of the full moon and how to kind of deal with it, prepare for it, the kind of mental mindsets that people have to have moving forward, and kind of understanding this energy. July 27th, 2018. So, facing and overcoming inner demons and negative mindsets. And that's Venus in Aquarius, the 5 of Swords. Generally, things will change in our life. Things won't happen the way we want to happen. And so the great person is the one who understands this. The person who's not so great is the person who does not understand this. And he's like, woe is me, and sad. Because negative vibrations are a choice that people make for the purpose to feed other entities. Negative vibrations aren't really necessary, but we choose them based upon a mind control program that has been instituted us since we were born. So, just something to think about. Courage and bravery. The 5 of Wands is Saturn in Leo, or just the first deacon of Leo. And so that courage and bravery is everything that Leo represents. And what areas in our life can we show courage and bravery? What areas do we need to be more persistent and develop ourselves, develop our emotions surrounding, failure, being told no, and things of that nature? How do we deal with rejection? Because these things matter when it comes to projecting ourselves. If we're afraid of rejection, then the things that we put out, we won't put out because they'll just say no, or they're not gonna like it anyway, so I'm not even gonna do it. That's your fault. Because all a person can say is no, or I don't like it. But you have to keep figuring out how to execute and make your shit better, and not let your fear dictate your life. This energy is unpredictable. We are dealing with Aquarius. There may be some things happening in your relationship where people are changing because their soul is awakening them up to different things. And maybe your vows aren't as strong as you once thought they were. And how are you going to handle that? Are you going to simply hold on, or are you going to simply understand that the energy has run its course and it's time for you to be free? There's going to be trouble in avoiding these conflicts. Both of these cards speak to when you have conflict and you don't deal with it. And then you wonder, well, damn. Well, I wonder why that happened. Well, you didn't address it. That's why it didn't happen. That's why you're single and alone, because you didn't say what you wanted. And so from this point, we have to be honest with ourselves, and we have to hope that the person across from us is honest with us, so we can find a real solution on how to move forward. Like I said, this is a very turbulent time in the form of relationships, businesses, things of the like. So what are you going to do knowing that this is going to happen and knowing that this is going to show up? There may be some things that show up that you're like, well, this is about to end soon. How do you feel about it, and what are you going to do about it? Don't be attached to it. How y'all feel? Y'all all right? So, we almost finished. We just got to talk about this because this ties into everything, man. This ties into everything. The Orisha of the week. I had a question earlier in the week when I was doing one of my daily energy readings, and they asked me, like, why do I talk about Orishas? And then why do I talk about Orishas when I talk about astrology? Well, the simple answer to that is that the Orishas are the stars. They're just the African version of the stars. In Africa, there was no Jupiter or Venus or whatever the case may be, there was, but they just went by a different name. And so when we talk about these Orishas and things of that nature, we're just simply talking about the stars, just the more melanated form or a different ideology, and just giving us different elaborations on the same idea. And maybe this may trigger everything that I talked about astrologically. Might have made no sense to you, but when I talk about the Orisha of the week, maybe this will trigger you because this speaks more to your spiritual ideology that you may have forgot through slavery or whatnot. So mental slavery and psychological slavery, when you went to public school and they taught you what they wanted you to learn, and they didn't teach you what would actually benefit you. So that's the purpose of this channel. That's why we call this Hoodmystic University, because we're learning things that we didn't know, and then we're incorporated and we're bringing this out. We're educating ourselves. We're bringing out the truth. And so Orisha of the week, Oya and Shango. Oya represents the moon in Aquarius, while Shango represents the sun in Leo. And so I'm going to give you a Pataki, which represents just a great story. These are two Patakis on Oya and Shango that I put together, and then I'm trying to deliver the message on how we can all overcome this full moon lunar eclipse, and then we can kind of be done with this video. So just ride with, oh, I got another thing to talk about after this, so, but that's neither here nor there. Oya y Shango. Oya y Shango is one deity. It is a combination of Oya and Shango. Before they combined to become one deity, Shango was involved in an endless war. He had fought for many days and killed many of his enemies. But this time, there were more that he could kill. And at once he was surrounded. And so he found himself in the middle of a lagoon or a ravine. And so, sorry. He was surrounded. And from this place of being surrounded, he tried to figure out, what is he gonna do? So he went deeper into the woods, where he found his lover's house, Oya. He found Oya, and when she saw Shango, because she's used to seeing Shango like at the top of his top and never down, he takes on all challengers one by one and is never defeated. She looks at him and is like, what happened to you? And Shango began to tell Oya, you know, what happened to him. There's too many enemies, and he's tired. He needs some rest. He needs some help. So Oya thought for a second. She told Shango, when night falls, you'll put on one of my dresses, and I'll cut off my hair, and you will escape. And so when nightfall came, they executed the plan perfectly. Oya cut off all of her hair, put it on Shango, gave her one of her dresses, and Shango was able to escape his enemies. And so when he escaped his enemies, he was able to get some rest and think about things. It wasn't the fact that he lacked courage or he couldn't fight. It was just that he was overworked and he needed help and he needed rest. So from that point, Shango rest, but his enemies were still out there. But through that rest, he came back fired up and ready to, you know, attack his enemies. And one by one, Shango killed all of his enemies. And then after a certain point in time, Oya came back. She started helping him kill him. And so from that point, anytime Shango went into a battle, he went into battle with Oya, because Shango knew that with Oya, there is always victory. So when we incorporate our masculine and feminine energy, you are invincible. And also is when in relationships, when you don't help the king, then the whole empire dies. And this is not no masculine, you know, men are blase blah or whatever the case may be. This is not that. This is real talk. This is chess, not checkers. When the king is captured, the game is over. And the queen is able to move all over the board. So how many women are utilizing this energy of queen and feminine energy and protecting or actually helping a man? Because we know that a man is supposed to be a provider and a king and da-da-da-da-da, but a lot of men are too hurt to even be there. So sometimes a man is not even going to say, I need help. So men, it's important for you when you're going through a tough time to say, I need help right now. Either don't deal with me or give me help. And women, we have to understand, or y'all have to understand, that helping is not losing. And you have to be mindful, of course. You have to be like, you can't just help any old guy on the streets, or maybe you can. But I'm saying this thing happens when we begin to work together and we're mindful of the energy. Generally, it's not helpful if you're listening to a Hoodmystic video and you're really resonating with it deeply and your partner's looking at you like you're a fucking idiot. Like, why are you listening to that dude? So, why I titled this video the Cicada Song? Very personal to me. I live in Ohio. So if I was to go outside right now, I would hear like this rumbling. I don't know where y'all live at, if y'all hear a cicada or if y'all know what a cicada is. Like I spend a lot of time in the future, I spend a lot of time in the future, that's true. But I spend a lot of time in the forest and nature, and from there I hear a lot of cicadas, and depending on where and what year there's the cicadas are out, and that rumbling, I was like, one time I was just like somewhere out far, first time I ever heard a cicada, or first time I ever realized it was a cicada, and it was just like loud and just unbearable. So I asked the person, like, what the hell is that sound like? He's like, oh, it's a cicada, and he just ran it down to me. So that sound that you hear is the male cicada, and that is his mating call. And this is how he seeks his wife, because he's literally buried underground, and he's making this sound like literally like, I need to mate, I need to be with somebody, I need help. And so the loudest is not the strongest cicada or the most sexiest cicada. It's the cicada with the loudest, the most desperate cicada that gets to mate, the loudest sound, and it's like a drum. No animal does this. And a male cicada will be underground for 7 years. So if you've been following my channel and following the things that I've been talking about, the rise of the Black Madonna, the rise of Lazarus, a cicada, which takes place during this time, is now rising, and this energy is connecting with the masculine and the feminine in a beautiful embrace that hasn't been experienced in 7 years. Powerful stuff. But that cicada can be like, I'm in the middle of the ground, don't nobody love me, I ain't never had a wife, I'm never gonna be, it's never gonna happen, I'm scared. Or he could just start beating his drum as loud and as hard and as possible as he physically can, because he knows that the harder that he works, the more energy that he puts in his drumming, he's gonna be able to choose which female cicada to mate with. And then the ones that feel bad about being deep in the dirt, they're gonna stay deep in the dirt, because that's nature. And that's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with astrology. We're dealing with nature and how it can relate to our personal life. So that is my lunar eclipse presentation. That was a lot of information, so that's why I did it 2 weeks ahead of time, so you can come back to this video and it's personal. It's how you deal with the energy for yourself. You need some processing on this energy, please hit me up at www.hoodmystic.com or hoodmystic@gmail.com. I put a lot of work into this video and I didn't do it for myself. I put a lot of work in this video so that it can maybe help someone along the way in their spiritual journey, in their spiritual evolution. Because I've been there and there was nobody to help me. So if the energy exchange is real, please support my channel. Patreon.com/hoodmystic, paypal.me/TheHoodMystic, Cash App Hoodmystic38. So really want to thank everybody for y'all continued support. You see me now with my fresh new HD camera. Whitney Houston. I've been seeing Whitney Houston a lot everywhere, so I had to represent for the shirt. But y'all know how I feel about humans and things of that nature. The deepest love and gratitude for all the support and everything that's happening. Make sure y'all comment on this video, share this video, like this video. If you're on YouTube, hit that little notification so whenever I drop a video, you'll know it, because YouTube, I'll put out 1 million videos and YouTube won't even let you know. So, you know, make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when the Hood Mystic is dropping. So peace and love from me and my family to you and yours. It's the Hood Mystic. I'm out.